Hello, and welcome back to the Bober Academy Football Podcast as we continue our series, our Saturday recovery series with Dr. Nolan Clausen of Midwest Movement Elkhorn. I am your host, Chris Bober, 8-year NFL veteran, 4 years with the Giants, 4 years with the Chiefs, and I'm also the founder of the Bober Academy, where our mission is to train and develop superior linemen. Now, again, a reminder, if you're watching this video on YouTube, right down there is our subscribe button. We'd love if you'd subscribe to our channel where we put out tons of great content on offensive line play and football in general. If you're listening to this podcast, please subscribe to the podcast channel. That helps you get notified when we have new episodes. And of course, our handle is at Bober Academy for all of our social media. So if you'd retweet, click, like, share, and comment, we'd appreciate it. So Dr. Nolan, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us today. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again.
Nice. So we've talked, whole body. Last week we talked about our feet, lower body injuries, and there's kind of a phenomenon that we're starting to see. I know we experienced it this week. We've seen it as some players of higher levels. Is we're starting to see knee injuries that are becoming more prevalent this time of season. We're about a month into the season, maybe a little bit more, and all of a sudden you hear about guys, tearing their ACL or their meniscus or having knee problems in general. Why is that? Why is it this time of year we start to see more and more guys that injure their knees?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, we're just getting into the season. Some of our muscles are starting to, lose their strength. They're just getting fatigued. So that's a big one. You work all season to build up those muscles. But we still got to maintain them throughout the season, or else they just, start losing their ability to keep strong. The other thing is we're getting beat up. At the very beginning of this, we did mobility drills, right? Mm-hmm. When we get beat up, our brain is going shut down, and it's shutting down ranges of motions and things like that. So we start losing range of motion in the hips and the ankles. And those are two big causes of why the knee can get beat up. So we've talked about this multiple times, but like your ankle is supposed to be a really mobile joint. So your whole leg is very analogous to our arm, right? Our wrist is mobile, our ankle is mobile. Our elbow is supposed to be really stable. It's really only supposed to move in one direction. And so is our knee. Our knee is only supposed to flex and extend. Our shoulder moves all around. Our hip is supposed to move all around, right? And when we start getting beat up, basically, there's a lot of injuries that are probably like unavoidable in the knee, especially like if you watch Nick Chubb's injury. It's gruesome, but like there's really no way to avoid that. But some of these non-contact injuries, and even some of these contact injuries, if we have good hip mobility and good hip strength, basically like what happens is if, say you got hit from the side, right, and your knee gets caved in like this, what happens if your hip runs out of the range of motion they're going here? That motion has to give somewhere, and it's usually in the knee. Same thing like your ankle. If you lose the range of motion of your ankle, to go in like this, and it doesn't rotate that way, the knee has to make up that range of motion somehow, right? And so we always are talking about in season keeping mobile and keeping some of our strength. So we can't just go to practice and we can't just play and expect those things to stay at their baseline. We got to keep moving up.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that you come into the season, and I always tell my guys, like the first day or two of practice, I like, guys, this is the best you're ever going to feel. But while the pain and the bumps, the bruises, the injuries to the surrounding joints, they make it so that your knee becomes more susceptible because our knee just moves in one direction. There's not a lot of exercise you do that are like literally exercising your knee. It's really exercising above and below that chain. So as the season goes on, not only do our bodies react just with the stress you're putting under them to limit range of motion, then a straight line joint like the knee gets affected. But you also kind of get in some bad habits of not maintaining that mobility, right? And,
Right.
and you know, I wish you could say that just playing football is going to keep you in football shape, and it does to an extent.
Yep.
But there's also these residual effects of not taking care of your mobility, your pliability, flexibility, and strength above and below those. So um, let's talk a little bit, I guess, just kind of some of the things that you've seen coming in and how our knees are truly being affected. I mean, you can give a little example there, but give
Yeah.
us some examples of why our knees are being affected by maybe our lack of hip and core mobility or ankle mobility.
So, like I said, if that hip and that ankle aren't mobile, the knee has to make up that extra range of motion,
Mhm.
right? A really common injury that we see, or pain, I wouldn't call it an injury, but pain that we see is people get like patellar tendonitis. They get
Mm.
pain at the bottom of that kneecap. Really, what that is the kneecap is trying to guide the kneecap, or that patella is trying to guide that kneecap in this direction. And if those motions become way too much, right, then the stresses become on that tendon, right? So oh, I would say a majority of our injuries that we're seeing are just lack of control of keeping the knee in the direction it needs to go. So that's a really common injury that we're seeing. We're also seeing a lot of MCL sprains, right? So this goes right back to what we were talking about earlier. We're getting the knee is getting caved in. Like we might land and our knee wants to go this way,
Mhm.
right? And the MCL is this ligament that's on the inside of that knee, and it just gets stretched because it's trying to hold on, right? So if we know that this is going to be stressed, we want to make sure that we use muscles right here to pull that knee back out. Uh, and so we're always working on, uh, we're going to get in bad positions, but can our brain and our muscles adapt and pull us out of those bad positions with control, right? So that's the name of the game with the knee: control, control, control.
Yeah, and I'd love for you to show us some of these, maybe some of these mobility exercises in a second. But can you explain the brain part, like you mentioned right there? Because kind of what I'm hearing is your brain kind of takes a blueprint of what your body can and can't do.
Right.
And that if you start the season, you're feeling great, you've done a great offseason program, your brain saying, hey, listen, we got this range of motion, we have this level of strength, we can accomplish these things. But as you start to deteriorate a little bit, if you don't keep up with your strength, conditioning, mobility, and stuff, your brain automatically backs you down. So if you get in that bad position, and it registers that, oh, I don't have the ankle or hip mobility that I did before, it's almost like it's is a protective measure. It stops, and then
Yep.
something else has to give. Explain a little bit more about how the. I mean, I think we know about the muscle part, but tell me how the brain operates and either helps or hurts us when it comes to knee injuries.
Right. So the best way I can explain it is like, all right, any golfers out here, right? If you take 3 months off of golfing, right? You step out onto the course and you no warm ups, no practice swings, and you stepped up to the tee. Where do you expect that ball to go?
In the woods.
In the woods, right? Why is that? Is it because your body's not prepared, or is it because your brain doesn't quite remember that mapping of how to
Mhm.
do it, right? Um, so it's like practice, right? So your your muscles and your ligament or your joints, they may be able to move in those directions when you ask them to, but like to do it with efficiency and the brain to have complete control of it, it's got to be a repetitive movement and performed often. Um, so that's one reason, right? The other thing is uh, like yes, our brain is a very protective mechanism. It doesn't want us to get hurt, right? And if it knows like, hey, I know I haven't moved this hip very often. Um, I know it's not in complete control. We're going to limit those motions. We're going to kind of tighten things down so that we don't push beyond those limits, right? So anytime you limit the hip, you're going to limit or have to increase what the knee has to do to perform some tasks. Same with the ankle, right? The body does work all in unison, but sometimes it can be compartmentalized into the certain areas where, it doesn't work all congruent, right? And so the more that we can work on those things all in congruency, then we get better. That's why compound lifts or multi-joint lifts, which are squats and lunges and things like that, where multiple joints are moving at the same time, are so effective for us.
Yeah, it also, I believe, speaks to the importance of good practice habits.
Yeah.
This time of year, as you start getting banged up, and I know I see this, especially at the high school level, where you didn't see it as much at the professional level because it was our job. You know what I mean? And we were grown adults out there doing this, but these kids, they'll get out there and they kind of half do practice sometimes because they're sore and they're beat up, and these things just aren't working right. So they kind of get in this habit of, instead of going, I'm not saying full speed contact striking, but like just getting into a proper stance, taking the proper steps. They get to the point where they think they can maybe just turn it on Friday nights.
Right.
But that's not how our body works, is it?
Yeah. And you and I know right now that if we just were to go out and go play a game of basketball, we would be hurting the next morning because we haven't played that, right? These kids are really resilient, and they can go and play and not have any of that aches and pains, right? So we have the wisdom, the knowledge to know that we need to do a little prep, right? We're trying to instill some of that wisdom with these kids. Like, they are resilient, but they're not, it doesn't mean that they're completely scotch-free of getting those injuries. They still have to prepare their bodies the same way. Right.
Yeah, it's that true definition. If you don't use it, you will lose it. And
Right.
what kids can get away with it for a while,
Yep.
and maybe it hurts them to be a little resilient because they don't get instant feedback that,
Agreed.
oh, something's going on. It just kind of slowly deteriorates, even at these young guys who heal way faster than we ever did.
Right.
But that's an awesome explanation. It just kind of lends to and helps explain why we're starting to see these things pop up. Now,
Yep.
on that note, why don't you show us a couple of things? I mean, we have the full body mobility routine that we've shared on here.
Yep.
I'll put another link up here for people to go to that. It's something that people of all sizes, shapes, and ages should be doing every day if they want to feel good. But let's specifically talk about maybe a little bit extra that we can do to kind of get these young linemen, get them back into out of harm's way, at least for their knees. Show us a couple things that would help them out immediately.
Yep. So first thing, you do need a little band, a round band like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to put that around our knees. So you might have seen people do these when they've had them around their ankles, but we're going to focus just on the knees right now. So all we're going to do is you would walk side to side, and that back foot would be a slow drag back in. You want to keep your knees straight ahead. Don't let them cave in with that band. We're going to keep them out, and we're just going to do some side steps back and forth, okay? Real nice and slow. And after you do about 20 of these, you're going to start really feeling a lot of stress right in there. After you get about 20 side steps, let's do some quarter squats. Just keeping those knees tracking out. We're using that resistance and not letting the band pull our knees in, right? We're strengthening our hips, and we're just getting some of that. Now, if you did 20 more reps of these little squats, your hips are really going to feel it, okay? So that's a really good start, okay? Now, the next one that we would do is seriously just a simple lunge. But what we're going to do is we're going to stand on one leg. We're going to squat down as far as we can with that one leg until we need to put that back foot down. And then we're going to squat back up. So I know you can't see my back leg, but what we're going to do is we're going to, let me go this way. So right here, I'm going to squat down as far as I can, hovering that leg until I need to put it down.
And the whole time you're doing this, I can just notice it from you because you pay great attention to detail. Is that you're really working on keeping that knee in line with between the ankle and the hip. So for these guys that might want to do these exercises, it might benefit to do it in front of a mirror or record yourself to make sure you're not getting off track, right?
Right. So the easiest thing would to be to let it just cave in while you're going down. What you're trying to do is keep that knee tracking over your toe.
And that motion you just did right there is probably the position most of these players are in when they get these injuries, right? That knee tracking in.
Yep. So you would just do 8 reps as best you can. Let me grab something real quick. So I got a yoga block right here. A pillow works just as good, but basically we're just doing a single leg squat, and we're just going to tap down our knee to that yoga block, come back up. Those are really challenging. I used to have a ton of knee pain. I started doing those a ton, and you will build really strong knees doing that. Now, that's like a lunge squat-ish. Here's a curtsy lunge. Basically, all you're going to do is reach that leg behind us. We're really getting into that knee wanting to go this way by taking our other here, and we're trying to control it back out. Okay?
And I can see you just really concentrating, kind of fighting to keep that knee straight.
Yep. Same thing as we go here. Like, it really wants to dive in, but I have to really fight that urge and really try to keep it going straight ahead. Okay? So in those two instances, the knee wants to dive in and we are controlling it, right? There's going to be a little bit of coming in, but if we can control it back out, then we're so much, we have so much better awareness of being in that position already and being able to control out of it, that even if our foot was planted and somebody dove into us, our body could almost fight it enough to where the ligaments don't get stretched.
Yeah, and not only are you strengthening your muscles in doing that, but in doing that, you're kind of reprogramming your computer up in your brain to feel that, and when you're fighting against that knee coming in, it will kind of unconsciously do that the more you do this, right? Because it realizes that I'm keeping my knee on track. That's a position I want to be in. And as you do that, you'll strengthen your muscles, you increase mobility, and your brain, your unconscious brain won't be so worried about just flat out protecting because you're sore. Now it's going to go on the program that you just kind of like laid in there as the default mode.
Yep. So those are strengthening exercises for that hip, right? Like Chris said, we've already done our mobility routine, but I just want to remind people, we're going to do a standing version of this. So like I'm going to lock everything down. We're going to open up that hip. We're going to rotate it back up, come back around. And we're just going to get that hip to start grinding out those joints. So we'll go up, out, kick that foot, around, kick it back, bring it up and around that hurdle. So that's another mobility thing that we can do. And I want you, if you don't remember that, or you guys have never seen that, I want you to go back to the mobility routine because we can really get a lot of benefit from that. Just doing that, my muscles already just went like, whoo, like crazy. Yeah. And my heart rate actually increased high because there's a lot of joint movement in there.
Yeah, and this, that's awesome. This is great stuff. It makes total sense to me. And it's funny because you have, these kids and these parents that want to go to the next level. And this is the kind of stuff that can take you to the next level, because I always said your greatest ability is your availability to be out there to practice and to play. And things like this give you the ability to continue to work and to continue to be in your position, practicing, being a part of your team. And ultimately, that's what helps guys get to these next levels is they can play more football or they can continue more in their sports and they continue to get better over and over without continually getting injured or continually recovering from injury.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice. Well, that's great stuff. So, we're going to kind of wrap it up here because that was plenty of information for those of you guys that are watching out there. Whether you're an offensive lineman or a football player or any sport or a parent of an athlete, just please share this because this is stuff. I mean, we're talking about these little things that may take us 10 minutes a day to do, but can really prevent these life-altering injury, career-altering injuries that happen. And then, of course, you can't prevent everything. Football is a violent sport, and sometimes accidents happen. But if you could do something that would drastically reduce these season-ending and year-long recovery injuries, why wouldn't you do it? So, if you're out there, if you have any more questions about this, Dr. Nolan obviously has a practice where this is what they do. So you can find him at midwestmovementelkhorn.com. He's located out there in Elkhorn by Rick's Meats for a landmark out there.
Yep.
But he's willing to help. And I'm going to include that information wherever you're watching this video. So, before we wrap up here, I always want to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our handle is at Bober Academy. You can find us on all the socials, do the things out there, subscribe to our podcast. And Dr. Nolan's available to help for anyone who needs him. So, Dr. Nolan, thank you for showing us. I learned a lot today. I hope the people out there listening and watching learned a lot. And, these are the little things that can make a big difference in these young guys' lives. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Again, find Dr. Nolan at midwestmovementelkhorn.com. And, of course, subscribe to our channel. And you can reach out to me with questions, comments, or concerns. Have a great day and good luck out there this week.